to what? I'm shocked that Buster Murdaugh filed this lawsuit.
Yeah.
I mean, here he is again. He's back. What is the purpose? I mean, okay, so we know he filed this lawsuit because he's saying, I have no connection to Stephen Smith. Like, Netflix, Warner Brothers, all these newspapers are, saying bad things about me. It's not true. But what? I don't understand.
His lawsuit is a defamation suit. And so what he's saying is all of the series that were put out on social media, on the different channels like HBO and Netflix, that knew that this case garnered so much interest, specifically the interest of South Carolinians, that they made allegations that he, committed the murder of an individual, and that he did it because of a romantic relationship with that individual, and that they're frankly untrue. And that because of the fact that this story has garnered so much interest, not only in South Carolina, but as well as nationally, and specifically also that these specials and these series can continue to be streamed. What he's saying is that he has sustained irreparable damage to his reputation, that they specifically used both his name as well as his image, referring to him, as red-haired and everything like that, that their statements about him being a murderer when he is not, because that's what defamation, it has to be that it's untrue.
Right.
Them calling him a murderer when he is not has created this irreparable damage to his image that he can never recover from, and that they did it with reckless indifference.
Yeah, and the specific names is Netflix, Warner Brothers, Discovery, Gannett Company, and then a couple of other production and media companies. I mean, there's so many. I mean, so many picked up this story. Why is he waiting until now? I feel like it's been a while. Why now come out with this?
I think it's about money.
I mean, after all of the stuff with Alec and the trial, it's not that I forgot about Stephen Smith, right? But I kind of wasn't thinking about Buster at all until this was filed. And then I'm Googling, oh yeah, his body was exhumed. Did they ever give us the evidence of that? And I'm interested again. And so if Buster's motive was to get away from this narrative, it had already kind of started to go away, even without him.
It's going to blow up again.
Right. But I definitely think when his family's estate has got to be held up in some type of probate, right? And then when your father's had all of these financial crime charges and the improper use of client funds, and so all of these assets of the estate, right, were begotten with ill-begotten means, right? And so what is there really to pass to you if all of it is held up in litigation? But what I can see is that the individuals named in this lawsuit have deep pockets, right? And so if I can obtain a settlement from them, I can certainly live well when the assets that would have naturally passed to me as the only heir won't.
Right. Because I think I don't know for certain, but I'm sure that Buster doesn't have money anymore, and he doesn't have the kind of money he was used to living with his entire life.
Sure.
Right.
And that's probably from what we can tell, even just with the boat crash victims, like that money is spent. There's no money coming to Buster that ever belonged to Alec or that Alec ever touched. So he's got to do something. But this is so crazy. Buster could have, if he wanted money, at this point, his father's been convicted, his mother and his brother have been killed. Why not just make a deal with Netflix and tell your side of the story? I'm sure they would have paid for that, rather than do this, because for me, just opens, and there's I'm not a defamation lawyer, obviously, but there's a couple of things that come along with that. You know, defamation is you spread lies about me, people believe it has harmed me. And so now everywhere I go, people think I killed Stephen Smith. The defense to that is the truth. So now he's going to have all these people trying to prove with a lot of money, not just cops and FBI agents and the government, but Netflix lawyers trying to prove that you did have something to do with it.
Right. And not local law enforcement that had ties to your family and may have investigated or failed to, whatever it may be. But people who are really going to have an interest in proving that the allegations that they said were true.
Yeah, and people who people want to talk to, right? When the police officers show up at your door, you're just like, I want all this to go away from Hampton County. But when Netflix comes in and says, what do you know about this? Oh, people, lights, camera, action.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
But maybe perhaps he shopped a deal to Netflix and HBO, and they said, "Yeah, nah, bro, we don't want your smoke." Maybe they said, "We don't want to do a deal with you. We don't want that book. We're not interested in that story.
Maybe
we're not interested in that side." I don't know.
So
OJ
many
got
questions.
A book. I mean, OJ had.
I just feel
yeah,
like we want to hear
crazy.
all stories. I think Buster for me
Yeah.
has felt very much like a victim of this whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I know the way I perceive him is like spoiled and benefiting from all of these. You know, crimes his whole life and the money and all of that stuff.
Well, and he's been so quiet this whole time.
He did lose his mother and his brother and his father's in prison forever. And it's just, he is very much a victim. And the Stephen Smith stuff was a direct shot at Buster.
Yeah.
Where he really wasn't involved in any of the other stuff. You know, Paul had the boat accident. It was just kind of, I think, them making an example of the power that the Murdaugh family had.
In the lawsuit is saying, on top of that, part of the issue is that here is an individual who now can't make a living for himself, that it's gonna directly impact his ability to have a career when these allegations have been made. You know, when you're saying that these things are so true, who's going to want to hire him? How is he supposed to, like, how can he recover from it?
I know, but so for me, a part of the damage is, how do you separate the damage that the Stephen Smith allegations have done to his reputation from just the tarnished of, like, his family,
the Murdaugh name, yeah. I feel like that's bigger than the Stephen Smith connection.
And then they talk about how he was allegedly kicked out of law school and stuff. So here's a person who was going to come into the family business, right? The family business of law. And how do you fall back from that?
What
right?
was going to be his future life?
Right.
It was going to be that, and that was not derailed by the Stephen Smith episode of the Netflix documentary. In my opinion, that was derailed by the truth about his family coming out. And even if he had nothing to do with it, it's, you know, he's associated with that.
Well, there's no known evidence linking Buster to Stephen Smith's death, but Stephen Smith's case was reopened for investigation. Do we know anything about that? Has there been any updates on that?
Like I said, I had forgotten about that episode of all this Murdaugh stuff.
Yeah.
Until and Stephen Smith, really, I was trying to follow up.
Yeah.
Did they ever?
I know, because I haven't seen anything really about it.
The last reports we got were that they did get evidence, but they never said what that evidence was. They just said it was a successful autopsy. They did another autopsy and they found evidence, and then that's the last that we heard of it. So, but what this lawsuit is going to do, right? Because the defense is the truth. It's going to get everybody digging into what that was, and was Buster really involved or not? And maybe that's what he wants, to clear his name. But to bring it in a defamation suit and say that the attention from it is harming you, to bring more attention to it this way, it seems.
But then, you know, on the other flip side of it is, if you're truly innocent of it, there's certainly a way, by filing the defamation claim, to get people with
to clear your name.
Yeah. You know, when you may not have the funds to do it yourself.
Sure.
Yeah, I could see that, and I'm excited. I mean, he's gonna open
just the other side to it, you know.
Yeah, he's gonna open himself up to a deposition, so we're gonna get to hear from Buster in ways, you know, under oath, about all of this, the Stephen Smith stuff too, where it wouldn't have been relevant in, like, his father's trial or anything like that.
Right.
we're going to get to hear his side of everything. And who knows, maybe he has something to say that can clear his name.
Well, and experts are saying that he might have a tough time because he's considered a public figure and has that higher burden of proof for the defamation claims. So kind of explain what that means. If you're in the public eye, I mean, you kind of go with the territory. Is that kind of what that's saying?
So again, not defamation lawyer. So not the prime authority on this. But what I do know about it is if you're a private citizen and you're alleging defamation, the burden of proof is a lot less. You just have to prove that it was a lie and it caused you harm. I think when you're a public figure, if you're determined to be a public figure, the burden of proof is much more. You have to prove that they had malice, that they intended to harm you. And that's much more difficult. And I
like
think,
how he's alleging the reckless indifference for.
Yeah, but I don't. It's more than reckless indifference if you're a public figure. So I think if Buster is now deemed to be a public figure, he's going to have a much harder time. Dare I say, he will probably lose, right? Because I don't think Netflix intended to harm Buster. I think they intended to harm Alec with those things. But then again, Netflix made
really think
Buster the public figure because no one was talking about Buster until all the Stephen Smith stuff came out on Netflix. So can you really hold that against Buster if the person who's defaming him is what made him so famous?
But then I guess you said intended to harm. And do you really think that means that there's an intention to do harm? You know, when we're in a society that just desires more and more information, and when are you saying that the people who are TikToking and talking about the mysteries and the different crimes and the trials and all of the evidence that they find, that there's an intention for them to do harm? Or was there really just an intention to provide
the story?
The
story of Stephen,
the background of it, and the true understanding of the extent of the power of this family.
Yep, and to get justice.
But is it like an intention to harm him?
As getting justice for Stephen's mother. That's kind of what it was about. It was about her never getting answers because of this family, and it was shining light that Stephen does matter, and I think that's really important too.
Right.
And so, it's going to be hard. But then also, like I said, will Netflix be able to say he's a public figure when Netflix made him famous?
Made him, or did they?
I mean, I don't know that we would be talking so much besides Stephen Smith. Why do we talk about Buster? I mean, it was Paul's fake ID. Buster.
Other to just check in on like the last surviving, Murdaugh, because I know people, if they see him out and about, they're like, "Here's Buster, I found him." It's like, "Where's Waldo?" But yeah, nobody really cares about Buster in general. I mean,
except for that, I feel like that's the only time we really discussed him in depth.
Were there not any I don't know. Was there anything with who was it that they were alleging came out the house with clothes of the father after? Who was it? Was it Buster or was it someone else?
I don't think
I'd have to go back and
okay.
revisit that.
I couldn't remember.
The housekeeper went in and cleaned.
Okay.
Alec changed clothes.
Okay. I couldn't
Buster
remember if that was part of it or no.
Yeah, no,
so
Buster
he didn't
was
have anything.
far away when
Okay.
it happened, and he had to drive, from my recollection, to the family when it happened.
So do you not think that he is a public figure in just the sense if there were no Stephen Smith allegations, but you had in-depth discussions and documentaries about the other brother, the father, and just the nature of him, and then to also have a trial that was televised where he sat there the entire time, do you not think that would also just make him a public figure?
I think he's considered a public figure.
Well, that's what the question
is.
Right.
That's what the court is going to have to answer.
But I think you're right in the sense of how they may not, there may be an issue of them being able to hide behind.
I mean, he's not the main character.
Public figure if their coverage of it made him one.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I am not in the legal field at all when it comes to that stuff, but I would think that he would be a public figure. I mean, he's not the main actor; he's the supporting role, but he was still brought into the public eye based off of his family's case.
The court's definitely going to have to rule on that, and I think that's what I'm reading about people smarter than me as far as defamation goes.
People smarter than me.
Is that they're saying that that's what it's really going to hinge on, because not only
Yeah.
is it oh my gosh, I'm actually on, this is kind of crazy.
Mhm.
I'm on the Parker Law Group, who is Alex Murdaugh's former law firm's
yeah.
website, where they're defining public figures and defamation, which is kind of crazy.
Interesting.
If you're a public figure, you can't claim punitive damages, which will really,
Oh man.
that'll not be good for Buster.
Yeah.
Because like we said, what are his actual damages?
Yeah.
The Stephen Smith allegations are not preventing him from being a lawyer in South
Mhm.
Carolina. It's his father's, disgraced legacy that's going to keep anyone from wanting to hire Buster. And the fact that he cheated in law school and got kicked out. That was his own doing. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. It's really going to hinge on this public figure thing. Either way, I think we're going to definitely get a deposition from Buster, which will be really interesting. And we're also going to get a lot more updates, I presume, about the Stephen Smith investigation and what went on there and how Buster was or was not connected to that death.
Now we have attorney Eric Bland, and he is Buster's attorney, or the opposing.
He is attorney for some of the Alex Murdaugh's victims.
Okay.
But he has been, he's spoken about the Murdaugh case all over the place.
Yeah, because the viewpoint from him is that the lawsuit could backfire and force Buster to reveal information about his relationship with Smith during the discovery process. So I'm hoping Buster is feeling pretty guiltless.
I think that's like what we were saying before. Is it
Yeah.
it does just open them up
Sure.
to the fact of, if you have to establish that this was untrue, that you're going to have to give more information and testimony and evidence about that, and that he's opening himself up to have these conversations
And answer the questions. There's
Right.
been speculation that he's gay. He had a sexual relationship with Stephen Smith. He's going to have to answer all of those questions.
And he's filing this lawsuit during Pride Month, I want to say too. Ironic. But yeah. I mean, it's like what you were saying, Sarah. If your goal is to kind of hide this and escape all of that, you're just kind of opening yourself up to receive more of it. So I feel like there's some other angle here.
Or his goal is to, like Sade said, to clear his name.
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna know
Yeah.
until we see the evidence. But it's not just gonna be Stephen Smith. It's gonna be his friends, his mom, everybody who was close to that relationship will probably have to give testimony. Because it's just the crux of a defamation lawsuit is what you said about me was a lie and it
Mhm.
hurt me.
Mhm.
And so Buster's got to prove that it was a lie. The defense is that they're going to try to prove that it was the truth. And so where the body was exhumed, we haven't heard anything in a long time. Now it's going to be all about, is this true or false? And what was really going on.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things, Netflix said a lot in that documentary, right?
Yeah.
They kind of allege that Buster killed him and that everybody covered it up. But they also said about the relationships they've had. They said a lot about
they
Buster.
did.
So there's
Yeah.
a lot of lies that are
Is
either
that
lies or truth.
Legal? I mean, can these documents do they have no parameter on what they can accuse people of or like allude to? Or is that when something like this comes out where there's a defamation?
That's the risk that's why we
Yeah.
have to say allegedly when we're talking about
Right.
things, right? Because we don't know if they're true or not.
Because I would
Right.
think there would be some serious, strong parameters and rules against that even hitting air,
Well, and one of the things is I'm reading the actual lawsuit that was filed by his attorney, and they're talking about the defendant Michael DeWitt Jr., who's the editor of the Hampton County Guardian, and they're referring to the statements that he made when he appeared in the Netflix documentary, and they quote specific things that he says. The quotes are, "We were hearing all of these rumors about a possible connection." And this is in reference to Buster and the murder of Stephen Smith. He made comments like there is some truth to it, and then made comments where he was trying not to use the Murdaugh name in the story, but that it definitely put a bad taste in the mouth. And so what the attorney is saying is that the statements that were made by this particular defendant definitely was he says that it was made with reckless indifference and that he was ignoring that there's evidence that says that he did not do it. And so he's also saying that they only placed some of the information in the Netflix documentary and that they were ignoring evidence that would have said that he did not commit the crime.
Right. Interesting.
And that they did so intentionally.
I could see that being a thing. I mean, you know, when you're talking about TV, you're going to get the juicy stuff out there, you know. Who knows?
I think I do agree that Netflix, with this, some of it, that Netflix, but we're coming from attorney positions where we're used to, you know, we presume innocence, and so we see guilt, right? And so when I watched the documentary, it was obvious they were trying to point that Buster did it, and then Alec and Grandpa covered it up. Yeah. But I'm thinking, all I know is that the state troopers investigated a homicide, right? That it is never supposed to happen in South Carolina. And we got a botched investigation, and I do believe that Stephen Smith was killed, but I don't know who killed him or why or how, right? Because we didn't get a good investigation. I don't know that I believe that Buster did it, but I know what the Netflix documentary was alleging.
It's like garbage in, garbage out, right? Yeah. That if we did a poor investigation on the front end, then perhaps the answer or the results of the investigation are garbage as well.
Yeah. We can also talk about DeWitt and him being named in this lawsuit, possibly to keep it in state court, rather than have it removed to federal court. And what I mean by that is, we talked a little bit in Micah Miller, jurisdictional issues. If you've got either sides of the case are from different states, complete diversity. So Netflix, I don't know where, I mean, it's probably in here, California, I would assume. And Buster in South Carolina, then it would be federal court, because I'm sure he's alleging damages over $75,000 to name someone who's a resident of South Carolina and will keep it in state court, which is interesting. It's interesting to me too.
Well, that allows for it to be filed in state court.
Yeah, it could be removed.
Because it can be removed.
But it can't be removed based on complete diversity if you've got Michael DeWitt in there. Yeah. And so that's, I think, strategic. I think Michael DeWitt did say some things and probably will be a good witness. But I think it's strategic to add him to the lawsuit for that reason.
But if you also read the lawsuit too, it's like the lawyers were thinking ahead of the game and saying is a violation of state and or federal. Yep. Like just in case.
No, Sean Kent is a very smart lawyer.
Exactly. Just in case you think that you can remove it and that thus this won't violate federal law, it does.
No, Sean Kent knows what he's doing. Yes. I'm surprised, and we had talked earlier, the choice of Hampton County, which I guess that's where the harm was done. That's where Buster is. Yeah. So I get it. But I just feel
such
like
a stigma.
I'm not in Hampton County, but I'm in South Carolina, and I know how I feel about Alex Murdaugh and the Murdaugh family. And, you know, I feel like as a personal injury lawyer, we have to defend ourselves now and prove that we're not all like him. And so I can imagine Hampton County does not, they either love it or they hate it, but they love it. It's because of Netflix, right? Putting them on the map and kind of making them famous.
But I also would say, you know, that's in what better place would it be when they're alleging that these production companies put this case to the forefront of something that was interesting to both individuals in Hampton County and to South Carolinians and then to the nation, and how it like garnered even more. And I bet these people, you know, completely understand when all those news crews, I mean, remember when they were like trying the case and like all the all the news crews that were outside of the courthouse that were not typically there.
Oh yeah.
And so here, this county, they're going to understand what the broad reach of the production companies, you know, doing these
and they might know Buster better, right? Where we don't know Buster, but they maybe grew up with him. It's small, everybody knows everybody. I feel like you either loved him or you hated him. And if you can get a jury of people who saw all the potential in the world in Buster until this, then they're really gonna, you know, push you forward on that damages side.
And to be able to see the pre-existing reputation that he had prior to all of this happening, and then what has happened since then.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's kind of the best place, but also possibly the worst
Yeah.
It could go either way. If you get Stephen Smith's
It's kind
family
of just like
on
also
there,
how when you pick a jury, you just never know.
Oh.
You know, you just never know.
Well, he could definitely play up the victim side of things for sure, of being somebody who is just, poor me, and I lost my whole family, and
I mean,
how
he is a
terrible,
victim,
that
sure.
then this comes out too. So I'm just attacked after I've lost everything. So it'll be interesting. What happens at this point? So he filed the lawsuit. Now what?
All of these corporations and Michael DeWitt are going to have to file an answer.
I have to respond.
And respond. And that'll
Interesting.
be...
So what does that mean, they respond? Are they like, respond in what kind of way? Either offering money or...
No. Anytime that you file a lawsuit and that's your complaint, right? Where you're alleging that the other party, the defendants, committed acts that are against the law, right? And so you then, as a defendant, have the ability to respond to what they say and say, no, or yes, I admit, or I do not admit the allegations that were listed in the complaint. And in turn, also have the ability to make things called counterclaims, where they can say, you did this to us. You did something to me that's in violation of the law. And so all of them will have an opportunity to respond and file answers to the complaint.
And that's a formal answer. So
Yeah.
they filed this lawsuit, looks like June 14th.
Yep.
They've got to get everybody served. I describe that to my clients like Pineapple Express when he's a process server. So literally have to be formally put on notice. I'm sure Sean Kent did that same day, just waiting for everybody to be formally served. And then from that point, they've got 30 days to file an answer. So to either admit or deny. And I don't know. You're getting in some big league lawyers with Netflix and all of these.
Oh, yeah.
I'm interested to see who's going to represent Michael DeWitt. That'll be fun. Probably a local person.
Yeah.
Somebody that we know. They'll either file a blanket answer, right? We get that all the time. We deny everything. All these allegations we straight up deny. Or they could make it juicy, put some stuff in there, give us some details we don't know. So we'll wait for the answer. And then after that, it'll be the discovery process like we talked about. The depositions, subpoenas will go out. A lot more information will be gathered specifically about Buster and Stephen Smith.
So we're in for a long ride.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A long ride and probably another whirlwind of Murdaugh news.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Especially as things come out.
Yep.
And we'll just have to wait to see.
Have we heard anything about his dad in jail? Is there anything new coming out of there? Just hanging out in the cell.
Yeah.
Now, he did appeal something, right? Is there anything new?
He did appeal. I remember he filed something for a new trial.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
was a
remember
while
what
ago.
happened. I don't remember what happened with that.
I don't either.
I think it's still pending. I would
don't
assume.
either. Yeah.
Those things take a long time.
Yeah. What is your do you have any theories of the outcome of how this is going to go with Buster?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, I think we're going to wait for two things, right? Is he a public figure or not? Because that's really going to make it more difficult for him and
True.
really lower his damages. If he's not a public figure, then it'll be different. So we got to wait for that determination, which I'm sure is going to have to be filed in the court, decided by the court. Which court? They could be removed to federal court. So there's still a lot of things we don't know. And then we're going to find out if it's a truth or a lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. We hope you guys will stick with us as we learn more about this case. And, of course, we'll keep you updated and do more of these podcasts when we find out more information. We love your comments in the comment section, so please keep those coming. Any of your questions we can address on our next podcast, but we will keep you informed. You can visit us on all of your social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. We're all over the place. And, of course, you can visit us online at justiceslovely.com. Thanks so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.